Hello and welcome back to Journey with Rebecca. My name is Rebecca and today's journey has actually been about a week long in the making. A little bit longer actually. I don't know, I've lost track, but I'm at the very end stages of making an enfleurage. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. I didn't either until about a week ago. It's lilac season here and I absolutely love the scent of lilacs, and I was like, how can I preserve this scent other than going to the local lilac festival here in Rochester, New York, and picking up like a $65 bottle of like 1 ounce jar of lilac perfume, which I didn't want to spend that money. And so I had these beautiful lilacs that were in bloom. I had them in the house. I brought them into the living room so I could smell them in there. I had some in the kitchen. I had some in the bathroom. And so I just started Googling, how do you how do you preserve the scent of lilac flowers? And I found this term enfleurage, and it's basically you take the fresh lilac flowers and you preserve them in an animal fat typically, or an oil. So I did not have animal fat, so I'm using a coconut oil. And basically what I've done for the past week is I've taken fresh lilac flowers. I'm going to uncover these ones here so you can see. And I have pressed them down into coconut oil and wrapped them up and basically have preserved the scent into the oil. So I've done this 3 different stages now. This is the 3rd time that I've pressed the flowers into the oil, and I've recorded all the steps. So I will show you all of that now, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we have here. So the first thing I did to start this process was take my flowers that I had and took off all of the blooms so there was no green. So this was a long process, but you want to make sure that you have enough that you're going to be able to cover your entire dish or pan or whatever it is that you're using to put your oil in. And then I just made sure that I threw everything in the compost. One note here is that I would do this step after you already have your oil prepared. I did it before, and by the time I got my oil all ready, some of the blooms are already starting to turn brown. So just a note, if you are going to do this, prepare your oil or animal fat first. Once I picked all of the blooms off of my flowers, I melted the oil of choice that I was using. I used a coconut oil. I think it's probably best to use an animal fat, but like I said, I didn't have any of that on hand. So I melted it real quick, and then I poured the desired amount that I wanted into a pie dish. You can put this in a 9x13 or whatever sort of container that you want to use. Then I got impatient waiting for it to solidify again because you don't want it to be completely liquid. So I threw it in the freezer. Once it was, the top of it was solidified, I threw my flowers on top and just gently pressed them down into the oil. Once all the flowers were pressed down into the oil, I securely and completely wrapped it in saran wrap. You want to do this so you are not letting any of that scent escape. You want it all to remain wrapped up in the saran wrap. And then once I did that, I put another pie dish on top, and then I just grabbed a piece of granite. If you know any of my videos, you know that there's plenty of granite around here. So I grabbed some granite, just placed it on top, and then I put it in a cupboard in a dark place for, I think the first one went for 3 days. After 3 days, I took my pie plate out of the cupboard and I unwrapped it, dumped out all of the flowers that I could, and then I tried scraping off the rest of them. They were obviously stuck down in there because I pressed them down when the oil was not completely solidified. So I ended up using a fork just to gently scrape off all of the flowers that I could. So then I could go ahead and start the process over again. This time I waited and did not pick my flowers off until I was completely ready to just put them back on the oil. So I'm using 2 different types of flowers here too. I'm using flowers from my lilac tree, and then I'm using flowers from my lilac bush as well, just to have a variety of flowers. And I actually have 2 different lilac trees that I was using as well. So once I got all of the blooms off, I pushed them down again into the oil, got it all wrapped, covered, put the granite back on, and put it back in the cupboard for another 2 days.
here I am following the steps for a third time. The longer you do this, the stronger the scent will be. Obviously, I am running out of time with my lilac blooms, so if you're going to do this, start in the beginning of the season. But I think this was plenty of time for me to get the desired scent that I was looking for.
So now that you've seen the whole process, you see what I've ended up with, which is this beautiful smelling oil, but I need to get rid of these flowers again. And so I watched a couple videos and read tutorials and articles and things like that. None of the videos I saw actually took you through the whole process, which is why I wanted to start at the end, go backwards, and then come back and show you how to actually do it. Because nothing that I saw actually explained that. So what I'm going to do now is just scrape all of these flowers off as much as I can, and then no one that I've seen has really explained the process of how you're getting all those little bits of flowers off, which I think I'm just going to slowly melt this. I don't want to like damage or like cook out. I don't even know if that's possible because I've never done this before. I don't want to cook out the scent that I've worked so hard to infuse into the oil. But I do think I'm just going to lightly melt this oil and skim off any leftover flowers. And then what's left is what they call a pomade, which typically you think of like a pomade in your hair, like a pomade oil. This can be used as like, I'm gonna put it in a bottle so you can, or a jar, you can use it as like a perfume on your skin, which will just be lovely and I'm really looking forward to. So let me get all these flowers off of here and then we'll work through the process of getting all the little bits out. So what I've been doing is just using a fork once I dump the initial layer of flowers off. And because you press the flowers into the oil, you're left with some that are in there. So that is the problem. Now I have to figure out how to still preserve the scent that I've worked so hard to infuse while getting the rest of these little flowers out. So I am just gonna use a fork to scrape. That's the problem though. You know, when you use a fork, you're taking away some of the oil that you've worked to preserve. So I'm just gonna get the very top layer. There's some in there obviously that I'm just not gonna be able to capture it all with a fork. So what I think I'll do is just cut this and so I can easily take it out and put it into like a double boiler type situation so I can skim off the rest of these flowers that are left. Oil is completely melted now. You can see all the little bits of flowers that are left in here that I obviously don't want in that. So I'm just going to strain that out now.
First time I put it through a mesh strainer and it still let some bits of flowers through, so I did the process again through a cheesecloth and was able to get everything out.
Okay, now what I'm left with is this beautiful, lovely lilac scented oil that I can use however I feel. There are different applications that you can use this for and do things with. For me, I think I'm just gonna rub it on my wrists and maybe behind my ears every time I want the little scent of lilac to come with me wherever I'm going. So the longer obviously you infuse the oil, the more intense the scent will be. Like I said, I did this 3 different times of going through the entire process of putting fresh flowers on. Our lilacs are just about spent now, so you want to do this if you're going to do this with lilacs in particular at the beginning of the season, right when they start to bloom. You can do this with other flowers too. You can do it with roses. Just make sure that everything that you're using is organic and hasn't been treated with any sort of chemicals. But this is a really great way and a cheap way to infuse oil with the scent of your favorite flower. So I'm so glad I learned about this. You know, I just went down the rabbit hole and figured out what an enfleurage was, and now here I have my own. So that was super fun to do, although I am impatient. It was okay, it wasn't too bad waiting, because you just kind of like set it and forget it. just put it away and forget about it until a couple days later when you come back and do the whole thing. So that was super fun. I hope you guys give that a try for yourselves. As always, if you found value in this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.